High above the city, in a glass tower that scraped the clouds, sat a man who had not smiled in 5,478 days. Silas Thorne knew the exact number. He kept count. The media called him the Ice King. Investors called him a prophet. Employees whispered that he could hear laughter 3 floors away and would find you. His office smelled like nothing. Sterile air, recycled cold. The walls were white marble, veined with gray, like frozen lightning. On his desk sat a single sheet of paper. Inheritance Clause 7. B. CEO must demonstrate emotional stability through marriage. Deadline, 72 hours. His stepmother, Eleanor, was already choosing new curtains for his office. He had one solution: hire a wife. Find me someone desperate, he told his assistant. Someone who understands that happiness is a luxury neither of us can afford. 3 weeks later, Maya Vance arrived, wearing a blazer 2 sizes too big and shoes she'd glued back together that morning. Her father had 11 days before the hospital stopped treatment. She had minus $247 in her account. She needed a miracle that cost $10 million. Silas slid a contract across the marble. 2 years, no intimacy, no emotional expectations, $10 million upon completion. Maya reached for a pen. Her trembling fingers caught on something. A tiny party popper tumbled out. Pop! Gold confetti exploded across the white stone. Silas's entire body went rigid. He stared at a single piece of confetti on his contract like it was a spider. "Do you think grief is funny?" he asked quietly. "No," she whispered. "I think grief is why we need confetti." Something flickered across his face. Recognition. "You're hired. If I ever hear you laugh in my home, the contract is void. Do you understand?" She understood she was making a deal with a ghost. She signed anyway. Neither of them knew that the woman he hired to protect his silence would become the only person who could teach him that grief and joy aren't opposites. They're twins. The Thorne estate didn't look like a prison. It looked like a museum where someone forgot to add the exhibits. Maya stood in the entrance hall, holding everything she owned in one suitcase, and felt the house swallow her whole. White walls, white marble, white orchids, scentless as funeral flowers. Even the grandfather clock didn't tick. Silas stood 3 feet away. "Your wing is east, mine is west." The staff work silently. "Why?" He turned slowly. "Because sound invites memory. Memory invites feeling. Feeling invites mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" "The kind that drown people." He walked away. His footsteps made no sound. Maya's room was beautiful, the way a surgery suite is beautiful. She unpacked slowly, 3 thrift store dresses, her father's reading glasses. At the bottom, fairy lights from the pediatric ward. She'd strung them above hospital beds so dying children could sleep under stars. The past 6 months crushed her. The carnival for sick children, destroyed by a storm. The insurance company refusing to pay. The bankruptcy. The phone call, "Your father's heart is failing." She'd spent her life teaching people how to find joy in small moments. Now she lived in a house where joy was forbidden. She tucked the lights away. 2 years, she whispered. "You can do this." But the woman in the mirror looked already dead. Downstairs, Silas sat alone at a 42-foot table. 1 plate. He ate methodically. Nutrition, not pleasure. For 15 years he'd lived in silence by choice, after Lily died, after the yacht sank, after he pulled her small body from the water and felt her go cold. He made a promise. No more celebrations, no more joy that could turn to ash. But tonight, the silence felt different, not peaceful, watchful, as if the house was holding its breath, waiting for the woman upstairs to break his most important rule. The Caldwell board arrived in black cars that purred like panthers. Maya wore a gray dress Silas's assistant had purchased. It fit perfectly and felt like a straitjacket. "Smile," Silas whispered as they entered, "but don't mean it." The dining room glittered with crystal and cold light. 12 investors, 11 men, 1 woman, all watching her like a specimen. Eleanor Thorne sat at the far end, silver hair swept back, smile sharp as a scalpel. "So," Eleanor said sweetly, "how did you two meet?" Maya's throat closed. Silas's hand found hers under the table. His fingers were ice. "She made me laugh," he said. The table went silent. Eleanor's smile froze, because everyone at that table knew. Silas Thorne didn't laugh. Dessert arrived on a silver cart. The chef lifted the dome with a flourish. Flames erupted. Someone had left the brandy bottle too close to the burner. Fire crawled up the curtains. Guests gasped. Chairs scraped. Panic spread. Silas stood. Fury and something else, terror, flashing across his face. Maya grabbed the champagne ice bucket and hurled the contents at the flames. The fire died with a hiss. Silence. Then she turned to the white-faced guests and said gently, "Well, that was one way to end dinner early." A nervous laugh rippled through the room. Then another. Then Eleanor's voice, cold as a blade. "How charming. She makes jokes while the house burns." But Silas was staring at Maya, not with anger, with something that looked like wonder. Later, alone in his office, he stood before the mirror. He touched the corner of his mouth, where a smile had almost happened. For the first time in 5,478 days, his face had tried to remember joy, and it terrified him. Maya found the locked door on a Tuesday. 3rd floor, west wing. A single door with no handle. Just a keypad. She shouldn't have been there. But the house was so quiet she'd started walking just to hear her own footsteps. She was turning to leave when the door clicked. Silas stood behind her, keycard in hand. "You want to see?" His voice was flat, dangerous. She should have said no. "Yes." The room was frozen in time. A white piano covered in dust, stuffed animals arranged on a small bed, paintings of dolphins and stars, and on the wall, a photograph. A little girl, maybe 7, gap-toothed and laughing beside a birthday cake shaped like a castle. "Lily," Silas said, "my half-sister." His voice changed, became something hollow. "I planned her 8th birthday party, a yacht, 50 guests, fireworks. I wanted to give her something unforgettable." Maya's chest tightened. There was a storm warning. Small craft advisory, but I thought, it's just rain. We'll be fine. He touched the piano keys. They made no sound. Eleanor controlled the family budget. She said the safety upgrades were unnecessary, too expensive. I didn't fight her. His hand clenched. The yacht capsized. Lily drowned in my arms. She was wearing a mermaid costume. The silence stretched like broken glass. "I killed her," he whispered, "with celebration, with carelessness, with joy." Maya stepped closer. "Eleanor killed her," she said quietly. "Greed killed her. You just loved her." Silas looked at her like she'd spoken a language he'd forgotten. "Love and death aren't the same thing," Maya continued, "even when they happen together." For the first time in 15 years, Silas questioned the belief that had built his prison. "Then why does joy always feel like betrayal?" he asked. Maya had no answer. Only this. "Maybe because you never let yourself grieve her. You just locked her away." That night, Silas returned to the room. He sat at the dusty piano, and for the first time since Lily died, he cried. Eleanor Thorne did not become wealthy by being kind. She became wealthy by knowing exactly where to press until something broke. And Maya Vance was already cracked. Eleanor hired 3 investigators. Within a week, she had everything: the failed carnival, the bankruptcy, the insurance lawsuit, the restraining order from the father of a child who'd been injured when the Ferris wheel collapsed. This, Eleanor told her attorney, is instability masquerading as charity. The board meeting was scheduled for Wednesday. Eleanor waited until all 12 members were seated. Then she activated the projector. Maya's face filled the screen. Bankruptcy documents, court filings, newspaper headlines, dream carnival ends in nightmare. This, Eleanor announced, is who Silas married. A woman whose recklessness injured children. The room turned to ice. Silas's jaw clenched, but before he could speak, Maya stood. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "Yes," she said, "I failed." Every eye locked on her. "I wanted to give terminally ill children one perfect day. I saved for 2 years. I hired every safety inspector the city required. And then a microburst, a storm the weather service didn't predict, destroyed everything." Her voice cracked. "A child broke his arm. His father sued me. He won. I lost everything." She looked directly at Eleanor. "But I would do it again. Because that child, he died 3 months later, and his mother sent me a letter." Maya pulled a folded paper from her pocket. She said the carnival was the last time she saw her son smile. Silence. One board member started to clap. Then another. Eleanor's expression turned to stone. After the meeting, Silas found Maya in the hallway. "You didn't have to defend yourself," he said. "Yes, I did, because unlike you, I don't think joy is dangerous." She walked away, leaving Silas standing alone, wondering, what if she was right? The power outage happened at 11 p.m. Lightning struck a transformer. The entire estate went black. Maya heard Silas's door slam. She found him in the hallway, breathing hard, hands braced against the wall. "Silas?" "I'm fine." He wasn't. In the darkness, he was 15 again, underwater, searching for Lily's body. Maya disappeared, returned with candles. She placed them throughout the main room, small circles of light pushing back the dark. "Sit," she said gently. He sat. She didn't ask what was wrong. She just began talking. A story about her 7th birthday, how she'd tried to bake her own cake and somehow set off the smoke alarm, the sprinklers, and called the fire department. "My dad told me I'd traumatized the entire neighborhood," she said, "but he also said it was the best birthday he ever witnessed." Her voice was soft, warm. Silas listened from the shadows. "He taught me that disasters make the best memories," she continued, "because they're proof you tried something worth trying." And then, without planning to, Silas laughed, not a smile, not a chuckle, a real, full, human laugh. The sound echoed through the empty house like something breaking free. Maya froze. Silas stood abruptly, hand over his mouth, as if he could shove the sound back in. But he couldn't finish, because for the first time in 5,478 days, he didn't feel guilty for being alive. He felt grateful, and that was more terrifying than any storm. He fled to his room, but that night, lying in the dark, he realized he wanted to hear that sound again, his own laughter. Eleanor's attorney arrived at dawn with a manila folder. Inside, the marriage contract. Every clause, every dollar amount, every cold transactional word. "This," the attorney said, "is fraud. Contractual marriage to circumvent inheritance law." Eleanor smiled like a wolf. "If we reveal this at the Legacy Gala, the board can void his position. The company transfers to you as secondary heir." "And the girl?" "She signed a non-disclosure agreement. If she speaks, she loses everything." Eleanor looked at the contract. For 15 years, she'd waited. Waited for Silas to fail. Waited to reclaim the empire that should have been hers. Prepare the presentation, she said. We go public in 3 days. Maya was in the garden when Silas's assistant found her. The gala, the woman said quietly. Mrs. Thorne is planning something. What? I don't know, but she's been asking questions about your contract. Maya's blood went cold. That night she packed her suitcase. If she left now, her father would die. If she stayed, she could destroy Silas. For the first time, she realized she cared about more than the money. Somewhere between the confetti and the candles, between his pain and her stories, she'd started to care about the man who'd forgotten how to smile, and that made everything so much worse. She found Silas in Lily's room, sitting at the piano. I'm leaving, she said, his hands stilled on the keys. Why? Because Eleanor found the contract, and if I'm there when she reveals it, you'll lose everything. Silas turned slowly. And your father? Her eyes filled. Some things matter more than money. For a long moment he just looked at her. Then, what if I asked you to stay? Why would you do that? His voice dropped to almost a whisper. Because for the first time in 15 years, I don't want to live in silence anymore. The Thorne Legacy Gala was held in a ballroom made of glass and light. 300 guests, 50 reporters, every major investor. Maya wore a dress the color of champagne. Silas wore black. They looked like a photograph from a magazine. Perfect, untouchable, completely fake. Eleanor took the stage at 9 p.m. Thank you all for coming, she began. Tonight we celebrate the Thorne legacy, but we must also address uncomfortable truths. The room quieted. She activated the screen. The marriage contract appeared, 50 feet wide. Marriage of convenience, $10 million, 2-year term. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed like lightning. Your CEO, Eleanor announced, married a bankrupt party planner to satisfy inheritance requirements. This is not leadership. This is fraud. All eyes turned to Silas and Maya. Maya felt the world tilting. This was it. The end. But then, Silas stood, walked to the stage, took the contract from Eleanor's hand, and tore it in half. The room went silent. You're right, he said, voice carrying to every corner. I hired Maya. I offered her money. I created a transaction where love should have been. Eleanor's smile widened, but Silas wasn't finished. I did this because 15 years ago I watched my sister drown, and I blamed joy. I blamed celebration. I blamed every moment of happiness I'd ever felt. His voice cracked. I built a company on silence, on control, on the belief that if I eliminated joy, I could eliminate loss. He turned to face the audience. I was wrong. Murmurs spread. Maya didn't save my company. She saved me. She taught me that grief and joy aren't enemies, that loving someone isn't what kills them, that laughter isn't betrayal. He looked at Eleanor. So if this company requires emotional death to lead it, then it deserves a new leader. He dropped the torn contract and walked off the stage. For 3 seconds, no one moved. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Then half the room rose to their feet. The board members exchanged glances. The younger investors were standing, applauding. Eleanor stood alone at the podium, her victory crumbling like ash. Outside, Maya found Silas by the fountain. You just gave up everything, she said. No, he replied. I finally stopped running from the one thing I needed. What's that? He turned to face her. Permission to feel something again. The water sparkled behind him, and for the first time Maya saw it. He wasn't the Ice King. He was just a man who'd been drowning for 15 years, and maybe, just maybe, she could teach him how to breathe. Silas woke to 17 missed calls. The board had voted overnight. He was still CEO, unanimously. Eleanor had been removed from all committees. The company's stock had risen 4% on authenticity and emotional intelligence. He sat in his empty office and laughed. A real laugh, loud and strange and rusty. Maya was in the garden when he found her. "The board voted to keep me," he said. "I heard." Silence. "Your father's surgery," Silas said quietly. "It's scheduled for tomorrow, paid in full. Not because of the contract." She looked at him carefully. "Then why?" "Because you gave me something worth more than $10 million. "What?" "A reason to stop counting days since I smiled." Maya's eyes filled. "If I stay," she said slowly, "I'm not decoration. I'm not silence. I'm the woman who will hang fairy lights in every room and play music at breakfast and probably make you laugh at completely inappropriate times." Silas stepped closer. "If you stay," he said, "it's because I'm asking. Not as your employer. As a man who finally understands that love isn't what killed his sister. What killed her? Fear did. Fear of spending money on safety. Fear of inconvenience. Fear disguised as practicality." He took her hand. "I don't want to be afraid anymore." Maya looked at their joined hands. "Then let's start with something small." "Like what?" She smiled. "Teach me to play piano, the one in Lily's room." That afternoon they sat side by side at the dusty piano. Silas's hands shook as he touched the keys. "I haven't played since—" "I know." Maya placed her hands over his. Together they pressed a single note. It rang through the silent house, clear, pure, alive. And this time, when Silas cried, Maya didn't look away. 6 months later, the Thorne estate looked different. Not renovated, transformed. Color had invaded like a gentle rebellion. Yellow curtains in the kitchen, plants in the hallways, photographs on the walls, not just of Lily, but of moments. Maya laughing, Silas smiling, staff at the holiday party. The grandfather clock ticked again. Music played during breakfast. The silence had been replaced by something better. Life. Thorne Enterprises changed too. A new division. Lily's Legacy Foundation. Free programs for terminally ill children. Safety-first events. Memory-making experiences. Maya ran it. Silas funded it. Together they turned grief into something that helped others survive their own. One evening, Maya hung fairy lights in the garden, the same lights from her suitcase, the ones from the pediatric ward. Silas watched from the doorway. "Are we breaking a rule?" he asked. She smiled. "You banned laughter, not light." He stepped closer. Tonight was his birthday, the first he'd celebrated in 15 years. No yacht, no fireworks, no grand gestures, just Maya. Candlelight, a small cake she'd baked herself, slightly lopsided. "Make a wish," she said. Silas looked at the woman who'd walked into his office with confetti and chaos and saved him from himself. "I don't need to," he said. "Why not?" "Because everything I wished for is standing right here." Maya's eyes filled. He kissed her under the fairy lights, and when he pulled back, he was smiling, fully, completely, without guilt. "You know what's funny?" he said. "What?" "I spent 15 years counting the days since I smiled. Now I've lost count." "Is that bad?" "No," he whispered. "It's perfect." Later, they stood by Lily's piano. Silas played a song, halting, imperfect, but real. Maya listened. "She would have liked you," he said quietly. "Yeah?" She believed the best way to honor people we've lost is to live fully, loudly, joyfully. Maya leaned her head on his shoulder. "Then let's live like that. For her." Silas's fingers found the keys again, and this time, when he played, it didn't sound like grief. It sounded like gratitude. The man who had banned laughter learned something that changed everything. Joy doesn't erase grief. It honors it. Because the people we love don't want us to stop living. They want us to live enough for both of us. If this story moved you, if you've ever felt too broken to be happy again, know this: healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to carry love and loss in the same heart. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs permission to smile again. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is allow yourself to feel joy, even after everything, especially after everything.